Stream. I am joined today. Actually, I didn't know how to say your name correctly. I've been saying Beatrice. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm so nervous. I've been calling it wrong the whole time I've talked to you about with my friends.
No, 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 it's perfect. Yeah.
So I'm joined by the very wonderful Beatrice Blue. You guys can see all of her art and links to her shop below. And as per usual, with all these interviews, I'm going to ask the 10 questions that I ask every artist, and then I will open the floor to whatever questions you guys have. So if during the interview, if you want to put your question with the @Vonnart so that I can see it, and then just know I'm not being rude, Beatrice. I'm like writing down the questions during the interview. So if you ever hear
No,
me
no.
typing, I'm not like doing other things. That's what's happening behind the scenes.
Well, thanks for
But
having me. It's great to be here.
oh, are you kidding? I am so excited to talk to you. And I mean, I'll get into it and I'll talk about the book in a second. But I always give the whoever I'm interviewing a chance to kind of introduce themselves, like who you are, where you're currently located, and what you do. So if you want to take the floor.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Hmm.
It's great to be here. I really love your work, man.
Oh, thank you.
Really, really happy to talk to you. So I'm Beatrice Blue, and I'm an art director and an author and illustrator. And right now I'm living in Spain, near a forest and near very loud neighbors. But yeah, that's basically it.
And I actually didn't know that you were an art director currently, because I know you were a book illustrator. And I know you probably can't talk about the project you're working on, but can you at least give us a glimpse of like when do you think you'll see the project finished so that people can like, I guess, watch it?
Well, it's a TV show, so it'll have hopefully several seasons. But the first one, I think, maybe by summer next year,
Oh,
we'll be able to see stuff. I mean, yeah.
oh,
I
that's
can't
great.
I can't say much about it yet. Hopefully soon, but I can say it's really awesome. It's looking beautiful, and the team is amazing, and the project's really cool. So yeah.
I'm very excited to see it. I mean, if any of you guys are familiar with Beatrice's work, it's definitely this very like vivid, color-filled wonderment land that I'm always entranced when I see you post. And I think the thing that really captured my attention lately was the blanket that you did. I think it was a while ago, and that kind of inspired me to like look into making blankets because I thought yours was just so well done. Um, that I'm very curious to hear about your story and your past. So we'll kind of see that in just a second here. Let me just make sure everyone can hear us all right. I have a bad habit of jumping into things and then not like making sure that people can actually hear us.
I'm
But
the
okay, it
same
looks like
way
we're
if it
good.
helps.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I guess we'll just kind of jump into it, and then if you like want to tangent out, just gonna give you the floor because this is about you. So I'm gonna just kind of sit back and be the standby interview question person, and I guess we'll start with growing up. When did art seem to grab your attention?
Well, I think I always loved art since I was a little kid because my granddad was a painter
Mm,
and he did all these sorts of things like the cookie boxes that you saw like really vintage ones, and it was so nice. He worked with all these tools and stuff, and it was just so mesmerizing. But he died when I was four, so and I have lots of uncles and cousins, but none of them, I mean, only one or two paint.
mm.
So I think I've always had it around in a way. And I remember they made me try watercolors when I was three or something. I have a photo of me
Really?
being really tiny with watercolors. I mean, I was just doing like spots, but but yeah, yeah. I don't know. I always loved it. I was always more dragged into music though than painting. But I guess it kind of balanced out in the end.
Yeah. I mean, was there like specific shows or movies that you remember seeing as a kid that like really affected you?
For art, like for me to
Yeah,
do that?
I guess like I always think of Spirited Away and like my first time watching that
Yeah.
and like really pushing me in that direction of like really seeing
Mm.
fantasy and what it can be and how I can contribute in my way.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Actually, it made me remember a moment where they had this day at the office, at my parents' office, and where they could bring all the kids. And I remember they brought me into my dad's office, and there was all these kids, and they just put us in a room to watch a movie, and they had like a little cinema thing. And they put My Neighbor Totoro, and I remember being very, very young, and I didn't understand anything. But I remember the kids getting really bored and just like going away from the room. And I was just mesmerized looking at the screen and thinking that I wanted to be there and I wanted to make places where I wanted to go visit. And that's definitely brought some feelings to me. So maybe something like that. Yeah. I mean, anything from Ghibli is it's just perfect. So
Oh, I
yeah,
totally
and
agree.
Spirited Away was my favorite movie since I was a kid. So yeah,
Oh, is it
absolutely.
really?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
definitely would consider, like, I have like a top three, and that's in my top three. I think Forever will be in my top three.
yeah. It's so beautiful. Ah, just perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, and actually, here, wait, I'm gonna copy some of these questions over here. So I'm gonna now push it into. Are you ready to kind of share the old art that you've had?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
the
yeah.
question is, can we see some work from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and 10 years ago if you have any? And I'm
Yeah,
personally
yeah.
very curious to see, especially the oldest work.
Yeah, I have a lot, but I just got like three or four of each, not to bore you.
Ah, get out of
Let
here.
me share my screen. Over here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is from when I was a kid. But this, I was 10 years here, 10 years
Oh,
old,
wait, move it like 5 inches to the right.
like
There,
that.
perfect.
I mean, I think I even copied it from somewhere, and I used watercolors. But yeah, I was 10 in there. Um, and in here it says, "This is a bear that's eating honey." That's what it says. And then here we can read honey. Um,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
beautiful masterpiece. And this is what I was doing, I guess, 10 years ago now.
Oh
T
wow.
from 10 to 15. Um, I was doing lots of academic stuff, and this is live painting. I
Oh
think
my
this was like
gosh.
2 weeks or a week or something. We had a model pose for us for a long time, and these ones were two or three different models in a day or something. And I was trying to move a little bit away from that and try to like build new worlds and create things that came from my head. And I started studying how the schools worked and how this was a model and this was a school nearby, modeling for like a month, I think. And this is a big painting. And I was like focusing more on studying how the structural stuff works to like apply it on top and comparing it. Um, and
Yeah.
then yeah,
I'm curious, did you go to, what are those called? The ateliers?
yeah. I went to New York to study
Oh, did you really?
for a bit. Yeah, they gave me a scholarship in a National Academy of Arts in New York, and I studied with great people in there. And it was great because there's all these like amazing artists. And also Amaya
Yeah.
Ruby there was one of my main teachers at the time, and she taught me a lot. I think she was up until a bit ago. She was the director of the um, Florence Academy of Art in New York with her
Oh.
husband. Yeah, and I also visited there, and it was beautiful. So I was a lot into that a while ago. I mean, I still am. It's just that I felt like this is a giant thing on a giant wood, and I tried to draw Danny when I met him for the first time. Um,
Ah.
but I think I was just trying to tell stories in here. I was just showing my vision about something, and I was
Yeah.
missing that creating stories bit. I mean, it was visually impacting, but that wasn't what I was looking for, I think. I was missing a bit that personal thing, like where I interpret the stories and I have something to tell in general.
Mm-hmm.
Which you do in here, but in a different way, I guess. So I tried, I grabbed a Wacom mug. I think it was, well, right now, 5 years ago, for the first time, because I don't know what that was. And I did this terrible drawings. And then I think these ones were the first ones that um, I where I could do something that I enjoyed. Because what I was trying to do is I saw all this digital art that was being made, and I liked it, but there was something about that analog texture that I wanted to bring into the digital paintings. But of course, I didn't know how to use Photoshop or anything. So it was a big struggle for me. So even though this was very simple, to me it was like a great success to to just make a stroke and make it feel like it was analog in a way. And I think I just tried to pull that way. Maybe I'm diverging too much. But these
Oh
were
no,
the
this is
first things
great.
I think. This is from like 5 years ago, I think, from a book that I illustrated. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, very different from what we've seen above.
I would say that
But yeah.
jump from like very much like a pure realistic mindset to kind of this more imaginative way of like dropping a color and it forming a shape, and then that's interpreted as like form. Uh,
Hmm.
I've always been very curious about that because I feel very stuck, or not stuck is a great way to say it, but I definitely feel very much in the realm of like drawing realistically or having realistic shading. And I'm
Hmm.
always like entranced by artists that simplify it and break it down in a way that's still able to be read very clearly. And I think your work definitely is amongst those artists that I consider very, very good at understanding how to like place form and or how to place shape to still create like this atmosphere and form.
It was tricky because at the beginning you can see it on these ones. Everything was very flat. Like even though
Mm-hmm.
it's volumetric, it was just very like stickers, you know? And I think there's a point in the middle where applying these volumes and the shadings that you're talking about, mixed with something that's flatter in a way and more not so realistic. That was the hardest thing to do, trying to come up with something that comes from my head and trying to leave it in a middle ground where it kind of looks good. It looks like something that I've never seen before. And I think that's one of the reasons why Ghibli is such a great reference and something I of course aim towards, right? Um, but yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now so
Ah!
you can keep,
Oh
yeah.
gosh, double Tim. Okay. So I mean, it's very, you know what, that makes a lot of sense to me, knowing that you came from that background, because your stuff does have like that subtle volume to it, where it doesn't read as like flat, and it kind of makes sense that you were able to maybe like subtly apply what you learned in those techniques into your art nowadays, and still kind of carries that same volumetric and that same, you know, things looking like they're dense and stuff like that.
It's something I definitely keep trying. Like, I don't feel like always I can always achieve that. It's something that I always
Mm-hmm.
aim towards. But for example, Danny does that really well, just with like two strokes. And that's something really hard for me, that spatial view of something that you're not seeing and you're creating, but you still have to like shape and show volume for. And I think that's something that animation teaches a lot too. Now that I'm in this show, and I'm seeing all these character design turns, and while we're doing them,
Mm-hmm.
it's just amazing and mesmerizing how everything can be simplified even more. But just with one line, we can kind of see that volume and we can kind of see that character come to life. And you can kind of see the skeleton of it, which is the
Yeah.
same example that I was showing before. And I think that's one of the hardest things for character design or anything like that. It's hard.
Well, and I agree. I felt like I learned the most when I went to school because I went to school for 3D design and like game art. So I thought I was gonna be a game artist working, for Square Enix on the next Final Fantasy. But we were taught, a lot of kind of like what you're saying, like looking at something in a 3D space and kind of analyzing where it looks off. And I think I've definitely carried that over into my pencil drawings because you learn things of like occlusion shadows or rim lighting and all this other these terminology that I think is very specific to 3D, but it has very much bled into the art world in general. And
Yeah,
I forget sometimes when I talk on live streams, like, well, I'm drawing, that some of this terminology isn't like
yeah,
the most basic things, but I'm so glad that I learned 3D like while I was kind of engaging in making my own 2D work better because I think it really does go back and forth. I think what you pick up from 3D can translate back over, and what you do 2D definitely goes back over as well.
I agree. And I think that's like that with all types of art and all types of type of art and all types of art in general. Like even with music, my sister's a dancer, and even though I know that
Oh,
what you're
really?
talking about is very specific, it just translates very well. Like when you compose music or when you compose a choreography or something, it's the same thing as making a drawing in a way. Like the mental process, it kind of feels the
Mm-hmm.
same. And it's crazy. Like sometimes people ask like how do I pick what to do or how do I know that I'm doing the right thing like 3D or 2D or whatever. And I don't know, I always recommend to do whatever you feel like at the moment because even if that's not what you're gonna end up doing, you're gonna learn so much from it. So even from the super realistic stuff, I ended up learning things that I can apply today. The same thing as you with 3D into 2D.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it's always like that. And I feel like I haven't composed music for like about 10 years now. And I got the guitar the other day, and just by everything that I've been learning from drawing, I could compose something that was 10 times better than what I had done 10 years ago in like a day. And that
Oh,
was so amazing for the brain, just because I think everything just blends in. So all the knowledge acquired helps in general,
yeah.
especially to show who you are and what you want to talk about in general, right?
One, like, I don't want to ask you so many questions off the 10, but I do think this then is a good question for. Um, oh no, I lost my train of thought. It was so good. Oh
No,
no. Oh
no,
no.
no, that
Oh.
sucks.
Oh, actually, yes. No, no, I found it. I found it. Okay. Because your style, it reads so strong to me. And like what you said, I think it's styles like an accumulation of everything in your life. And I think the strongest styles are the ones that most showcase like who the person is through their work. I
Yeah.
definitely think like an art is a reflection of who the artist is, and the quote unquote the best artists are the ones that usually can really showcase who they are. And I was curious, do you feel like there's been things that aren't art related or aren't in like a creative field that you feel have influenced your work that may not be typical?
Absolutely. Every single thing that makes me myself builds my art. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about art. Like my work is wouldn't be my work without my experiences. And I think
Mm-hmm.
to me that's something that's made me learn a lot about my style. I always have this conversation in general with people, but I get these questions all the time from, I don't know, people or messages or whatever, and they're like, how do I find my style? And I always answer the same thing, just look for yourself. That might sound very cheesy, but it is true. Like the moment you discover what you like, what kind of flavors, what kind of food, what kind of travels, what kind of books, anything that you feed on as a person bleeds into your art. And I mean, if it doesn't, maybe you're pursuing something different. Just because sometimes we get very caught up, especially at the beginning, I think I did, on looking up to other people and other artists and wanting to be like them and wanting to be as good as them or better than them or whatever. But in the end, for what matters to me today is to create new stories and create new art and just tell stuff and show it to people that might want to listen to it. And that can only come from what I really want to talk about. It's like an interesting conversation. How do
Yeah.
you open that? What do you want to talk about? Out of all these things that you've got inside, which ones are the ones that make you be excited and make your eyes shine? And what if you turn that into a story? Um, I think one of the good inspiring movies that I saw a while ago that made me go through this process of thinking as well was Big Fish,
Ah.
just because it's just so great
Mm-hmm.
the way everything happens. And I'm not gonna go into details, but um, yeah, we can move on. Sorry,
No,
I
no, I
get
love this. No, honestly, I love this. And I think Big Fish is, well, I mean, this is more subjective, I guess, but I feel like Big Fish was Tim Burton's like last real film that like showcased his like kind of quirkiness and his oddness before it became very Hollywood flavored. But I love Big Fish. And was this the first time you've seen it, or is this like a repeat?
No, no, the first time I saw it like a while ago. I think I always recall to that, to the just I guess the feeling of a person going through a life and just picking out the things that they want to live and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing them from their own point of view. And for me, that's art. Like, of course, the stories that maybe I'm making right now are not real, most of them, but I wish they were. It's the same thing as the Ghibli movies, right? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
wish they were so real. And I think that's my main goal at the moment to try to make you feel like you want to be somewhere or you want to meet someone just because they seem so interesting.
Yeah.
But that has to come with a story. That has to come with personality and thought and care in that way, if that means anything.
So I'm curious then. How did you feel about the dad's decision to kind of always mask his history to his son? Because this is me and my friends have talked about this specifically. When I was younger, I used to get upset at the dad because you could just tell that the son didn't want to hear like the stories of his life. He wanted to know the truth. And then I watched it, I think it was last year. I actually cried at the end because I realized so much, especially when the son kind of allows his dad's stories to be the truth. Um, I thought it was like this really beautiful, touching moment. It was like this growth in myself where I realized how much I'm okay with, allowing like this old man who's, telling these stories throughout his whole life. And that's the life he really wanted to live. And that's what he wanted to pass on to his son is the power of storytelling. And like that, it really affected me as I'm older watching it. But younger, I was really upset. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious where you landed.
Yeah, I think the same thing. And I think that's why I keep coming back to that in my head. Like, I think I've only watched it once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one movie that I still remember all the time, just because I keep thinking about it in different stages as I grow. And that thought exactly that you said is it talks about everything that I've been talking about. I think in my book, Wonder, the first thing I say, or one of the first things I say, is that I think that you can see everything that's around you in so many different ways. Like you can see every single little thing or every single experience in a different way. I mean, we could see politics, we could see religion, we could see everything that bothers
Mm-hmm.
us or we love has a point of view, and we don't have the same one because we're all different, and our experiences, our prejudices are different. Um, so there's never a true one if you think about it. It's
Yep.
just like a common agreement or not. So what I want to go with this is where I want to go with this is that in the end, you're going to live one life. And in this life, you can see all these moments in a certain way. And that certain way, you choose it. If you choose to be angry at
Mm-hmm.
something, you choose it. If you choose to change something, you choose it. If you choose to be happy about something, again, everything that you feel, see, or do is a choice. And it's hard because there's traumas and there's everything that we go through, right? And it's
Hmm.
hard to deal with. But again, it's a mindset. It's about us wanting to experience something in a certain way. So I think that's art as well.
Yeah, right. Bring it all back. I know it's
Yeah.
this is such a funny conversation. We talk about this, my friend Pui and I. What you just said is like everyone has their own truth, but he always describes it as it's a lowercase truth. Like that capital T truth, no one actually knows, but everyone's
Yeah.
a lowercase t truth. There's people that either facade it thinking it is the big truth or the capital T
Mm.
truth, or they're just unaware, or they are aware of it and they're like, well, this could be the truth, but it's also my slanted perception of it. Who knows if it is? And I always find it much easier to talk with people that are like, well, this is my truth, but I'm also very aware that it might not be capital T truth, and I'm very open to hearing like other people's. So it's
Yeah.
funny that like I that's great.
It's true. I mean, it's true. Funny. Um, but I think it's the same thing with art. If we go back to that in general, if we go back to the style thing, it's
Yeah.
always evolving because we're always experiencing new things and you change because you grow. So why shouldn't your art change? Why shouldn't we allow ourselves to show and tell different things throughout our lives, right? And I think that's the beauty of it. And maybe trying to pursue a certain style is like trying to pursue yourself in a certain way.
Yes.
That's weird because you're not allowing any room to change or any room for improvement in any way. So it's always connected.
Oh boy, I feel like I'm gonna interject one of my personal questions in these 10 because I am very curious about this specifically because I definitely feel very much like not only have other people kind of put me in a box of like what I'm allowed to do as an artist, I definitely feel like I've put myself in that box as well. And it's become like this comfort palace, as Miles would call it. And I sometimes feel that um, I'm so preoccupied with what I think I have to make specifically for Instagram standards of like
Yeah.
like most of my pieces now are very square or they're very like just slightly longer. I primarily only do pencil stuff, even though like I really want to explore stained glass. I think there's still a bit of that fear being like, well, no, I have to do pencils. So I'm curious if you've ever felt that that pressure of like what you're supposed to do or what your style is supposed to be because you kind of like established a very strong voice. And then what it's like exploring away from that because I'm sure
Hmm.
you see a lot of artists that also when they find their voice, they kind of stay within that realm
Yeah.
and I feel myself struggling in those constraints and I'm like but I put myself here so I can't be
Yeah.
angry at anyone but I'm curious if you've ever felt that.
Yeah, I did. And it was a hard thing to break. But um, the moment I started not giving a shit. It was the best moment ever. Just because I started really learning and I started really enjoying stuff.
Yeah.
Because honestly, and then you realize that maybe for social media, especially, is like struggling at the beginning because it's like an internal fight because you're supposed to be doing something that you're
Mm-hmm.
not doing. But then in the end, I always go back to the same thing. If you die tomorrow, did you do something that you really enjoyed, like today or yesterday? Because that's what it's all about. Do you want to earn money, but you're doing something that you're not really enjoying? Maybe you can do
Yeah.
money doing something else and just enjoy doing something that you really want to enjoy doing. And in the end, I think in general, there's this thing that general feeling that because we found our own voices, we have to stick to something, and that makes us miserable because we can't explore beyond that. But our job, like our ideal job, is not to do that same kind of art all the time, is to open the boundaries and explore that because that's what we really enjoyed in the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning too. And I think there's certain things that people do in different ways. For example, Rebecca Green, who's an illustrator I really love, she does this Wednesday fun days kind of thing. So she always allows Wednesdays for herself to explore different things. And she tries all these media that she's never tried before. And I think that's great because then you kind of like allow yourself to test something and maybe implement
Yeah.
it or not as you want. I was a bit more drastic. I was just like, yeah, I don't care. And it's weird because there's this point in social media that I think you can know how your followers want you to act,
Yes.
and you you have two options. You either follow that path or you don't. And honestly, I think I could have a lot more followers by now if I kept doing what I think I could have kept doing, but I didn't. Just because I knew that if I was going to go down that path, I was going to feel miserable for like a lot of time.
I
And in the end, what I saw when jumping through that boundary, it was that people wanted to see the people that really loved my work wanted to see what I did next. And it didn't matter what it was, what type of art it was. It doesn't matter if it's temporary tattoos or if it's a picture book. Um, and if it's different styles, because people just enjoy seeing what you want to talk about. And I think this comes back again to our previous talk.
hmm
um, it's so weird that we put constraints to ourselves, thinking that we're having this ideal job, which is like drawing and painting. And I, I don't know. If you found your own voice, what do you want to do with it? And are you enjoying it? I think I would always ask that to myself. And if it's something good in both cases, then go for it. Why not? But if
Yeah.
you're questioning it,
I know, and
go
I
go for it.
it's funny hearing you talk about because that's like I have those moments where I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm just doing what I want, and then especially when COVID came around, it was definitely this big fear of I have to make money, and I can even admit it, like I felt like I was definitely catering what I was doing and the work I wanted to create to fit kind of the performance of how it would sell, and I don't feel great about that. And I like Rush made a card deck in like 4 months, and some of the art I'm actually proud of, but then some of them like I needed to get it out because I was on a deadline, and I never want to feel that way again. It
Yeah,
wasn't a great feeling thinking I was making something because I had to. Uh,
yeah,
and you're a great example of your art always does feel very free. It does feel very much like you in essence. So it's kind of great hearing this as like a reminder, and I'm sure other people listening right now are also kind of either they're like really in the the trap of what social media can do, and I think it's good to
mm,
sometimes be reminded of like it's good to break free. And honestly, the times that I don't know if you feel the same way, but when I've broken free from those constraints, I feel like I do my best work. Not
yeah,
always, but definitely sometimes I'm like, wow, this is great. And like, I know eventually I'm going to get into stained glass. And I don't think it'll perform well on Instagram, but there's a point where I'm just like, I just don't care. And even my own sister was like, Tim, why would you do that? That's not going to make money. I'm like, Katie, I need to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not about money.
It's
It's
not.
great that we can make money, but it's not about money. It's about you have something to tell and you know how
hmm
to tell it. Why are you keeping yourself constrained from that because of what other people are going to think? If people don't like it, well, yeah, sure, go away. I don't care. And if people like it, they're gonna love it even more because they're seeing something from you that they never knew that was there. I would be mesmerized. I would be like, wow, you did this because it's great. It's like part of yourself. I'm getting to know you better.
hmm
And that's even more amazing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for the reminders again.
yeah. No, I mean,
Okay, let me jump back into the 10 questions.
yeah,
I feel like
sorry.
sometimes I have a habit of like rambling.
Sorry.
Okay, so what piece defined your growth and progress from seeing yourself as an amateur artist and making the jump to a more professional one?
I think that drawing that I just saw, that I just showed, the kid with the crown,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's definitely everywhere now. It's very old, but I think it was the first one where I mean, I did this terrible drawings before with the Wacom in Photoshop. It was very terrible. Um, but that one got me a first book to illustrate. and it was not well paid or anything, but it was a publisher that I had loved since I was a kid, and it was local, but it was great.
Mm.
And so I did it, and it felt amazing. And then that led me to like more work, that got the eye of an agency, and that got more stuff rolling. So I guess that was the one in general.
That- So, did you personally also feel like that's when you made the change? Because it like professionally, I think it's very easy to see like, oh, this is when like I definitely got more attention or my money income started. But do you also feel like that was also your personal growth piece?
No,
No.
no. I think that was the one where I reached something that I was going after,
Uh,
which was trying to learn to paint digitally and trying to draw something that was from my imagination. Um, and that was like a personal goal that was cool, but that led me into the first loop of that like Instagram kind of thing, or
yeah.
what people wanted to see. And it's funny that to this day, I still get questions for picture books or posters or whatever it is that look just like that illustration. And I could have stuck with doing faces looking front to the camera like that kid and do like tons of kids, and I would have a million
Mm-hmm.
followers by now, I'm assuring you. And it was very depressing to know that everybody wanted the same stuff. And then
Yes.
when I didn't do it, other people did it. And you can see it. And there's people just like even like cutting my eyes and putting them into their
Oh,
drawings.
wait,
And that's
really?
just so that's yeah, I mean that's another subject.
Ah!
But
Oh my
that's very
gosh.
sad in general. That's I don't know. I feel like I mean this goes into another answer, but I feel like the industry in general it's kind of poisoned because of that a little bit. Um, Whenever something works, we just like I don't know, sell it and commercialize it and make it like the trendy thing. And definitely that's how trends start, right? There's no other way to create a trend. But on the other hand, sometimes it just feels like people cannot see beyond. um,
Oh gosh, I have so many
so
questions for you. You're, you're right. People are saying the volume's a little low. I'm gonna turn my speakers up just a hair here.
okay. Sorry, yeah, I speak very low.
Oh no, don't worry, you're good. Okay, there we go. Okay, so then that leads me into this question because I'm starting to see it, and I have started to see it the past year of people kind of taking either my work and just kind of like changing maybe some stuff and then placing it on
Mm.
their own page. And I've always come from a place of don't let your ego like drag you down or like drag a younger artist down because they're usually young or they're experimenting. But there are some times where like a good, a more well-known artist, I can just kind of tell they've like seen something of
Yeah.
mine and then just you know, redid it a little bit. What are your thoughts on that? Because I'm still being like Tim that I'm either fighting myself of like don't inflate your head too big, like you did the same thing when you were younger, and um,
Yeah.
so I'm curious to hear. I didn't realize it was that bad though. I've never had someone like clip my own art and then call it their own.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same process. So, I mean, the same thing that's happening to you. Um, Honestly, I used to get very upset about all of that, and it really hit my heart. Like, I would come to Danny very upset, like, "Hey, Danny, this happened," and I was crying, like something,
Oh,
someone just told this. And but with like along the years, he he always told me the same thing, and that it's true. And now I've finally, I think I've acquired that, and it's great. And he used to say that there's two types of artists or people, the leaders and the followers. And if you become a lead, they're going to follow you. And if you're a follower, you're always going to be following something that you're never going to achieve. So in a way, the way that Danny sees it or talked about it is it's kind of sad when people do that, just because when we talk about what we were talking about having our voice, about having this excitement, about sharing our experiences and stuff.
Hmm.
It's kind of sad in a good way. I mean, in a very honest way, that someone that's doing that hasn't achieved that, and it's so clear, it's so visible, and they just want to be like you, and they can't because they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to be themselves, and they have to look for other people to try to become someone. And if you think about it, it's kind of like radically bad.
Yeah, I've
And even if they, oh, sorry,
no, no,
go
no, you
ahead.
go, you go.
I was just gonna say, even if they achieve something, like what can it be? Money? Recognition? I mean, that sucks, but in a way, they're you know that they're always gonna be following something. You're gonna always be opening doors, and they're just gonna be going through the ones you open. So you got the power inside yourself. Um, you're the one that's gonna say over here, and people are just gonna go like, oh, and that's beautiful. I mean, that's the most that you can do. That's the most amazing thing, and that's the real talent over there. People don't have that.
I feel like I'm gonna put that quote on my wall. I That's such a great way to view it because I think it's very easy for me to get like kind of bitter or like upset in the moment, being like, like that was my idea and like that came from like something personal, or the reason I do that on the eye is because of this or whatever. uh, that's a
Yeah.
great way to put it. And I that's definitely going on the quote board. I've like from other interviews I've done, I've like there's certain ones I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna cherry pick that one and put that on the ground. But that was great.
Yeah,
Okay.
happy to hear
Yeah, no, thank you. Your nuggets of wisdom right now. All right.
it.
So the next question is there a piece you have a personal connection that stands amongst the rest as a personal favorite?
I don't know. I think like they all do. They all have a little piece of my heart inside in a way. When you say what you just said, like that came from personal experience, and the way I do this eye is because there's certain decisions in there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like all of the drawings have a bit of that, and I think that's also one of the reasons why, or one of the ways I try to blend my personal art with the work I do for other people. So if I take jobs like this show or like other books for other people, the only moment I do that is if I can put a bit of myself in there.
Yeah.
So it becomes my project in a way. If it doesn't, then I just become a machine or like something that's just like doing things for production, and that sucks. um,
Yeah.
so, so I think I couldn't really pick one, but I can say that my upcoming book, I've got an upcoming picture book that's about mermaids, about a different way of seeing mermaids, and it there's a few drawings in there that I could say they're my favorite.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Is there a set release on this one?
Yeah, I think that's March next year if I make it to the deadline.
The dreaded deadline. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited for that one then. Oh, and
Yeah.
actually, I should even mention on the stream because your book Wonder, because this is different than your other books, because your other books are more of a story narrative.
Yeah.
So then, where did your idea for Wonder kind of pop out from your illustrated books of like, I want to make a book that kind of is about my journey and the work that I've done outside of that work.
Well, I had thoughts about doing an art book in general, but it felt like it was never the right time. I always thought I've got to be very old to do an art book.
Yeah.
Um, and very experienced. And then I thought that I was never going to be experienced enough or feel experienced enough to do an art book. And I thought, okay, well, let's try to approach it in a way that could tell the story, and it could be
Hmm.
part of my journey as I go forward, as I move forward and grow. And um, I guess art books have something that's just like art in general, and I kind of wanted to be a bit more of a story or metaphor in general, and I think that's where it happened. I don't know. I just knew that I wanted to make a book that felt, I've said it like 1,000 times, but that it felt like a little treasure, like something that, I don't know, like these type of objects that you really care for because they have something, you don't know what it is. And that was kind of my goal. And I think that's where it came out. I don't
I think it's just wonderful. And I was telling Beatrice before the stream that you are literally the reason for the color of my wall. Because a lot of the color swatches, you can't even see the lower part of my wall, but it's like it's one of those two
know. Oh,
tone walls. So
it's
you actually the
blue.
blue, yeah, the blue on it is from
Oh,
your book. And then I still kept the color swabs from the store because I thought it was so cute. But this rich color, I still am in love with your choices.
uh,
And I think what
that's
really
so
attracts me to
cool.
your work is obviously not only the subject matter, but your color choice is always just so. It's bold without being distracting, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you. That's a great compliment. I mean, I'm very picky about color in general.
Oh, I
So,
can tell.
yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
you're not just like late, just randomly picking color. Even when
Mm-mm.
you do like very rainbow palettes on like characters, it still feels cohesive.
Well, that's the greatest compliment I could get in a day.
Get
I
out of
mean
here.
it. I mean it. I mean it. Color is very important for me. I'm obsessed with color in general. It's funny because I was in um, I was in Amsterdam in January, I think. I was giving two workshops, and I met Lois over there,
Oh,
and on in one of my workshops there was a couple of people that had gone to her workshops as well,
yeah.
and they mentioned how she works in a very intuitive way with colors and just like trying to find it as she paints. And I mean, when they asked me like, "What do you feel about that?" I talked about this with Lois too, and it was funny. Like, I completely disagree. I think, um, I think color is intuitive, but it also has a structure which allows you to pick several colors in one single space and
Mhm.
still be cohesive without looking too like crazy, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why Moebius and people like that it's amazing because they kind of understand that and they work with that. Um, so it can be intuitive up until a point, like when you know and when you've experienced different palettes that you like, you can stick to certain ones. But if you want to create new ones, knowing that they already work like right away, it's a question of values, it's a question of temperatures, it's a question of, I mean,
Mhm.
so many things to have in mind. So, I mean, intuitive is a word for it. I mean, you can, but certainly it helps to have that like structure, I think,
Yeah.
in a way. I mean, it's beautiful. The way, for example, Lois does it. I love it. But it's true that breaking it down into like four simple things can allow you, in my opinion, to do thousands of colors in just one single space, again, without feeling like overcrowded or just weird in
Yeah.
general. But
One, I mean, you bring up a good point with her work too, because I think at this point she's done so many palettes that probably intuitively she does kind of know which one
yeah,
will work. But I think a lot of younger artists that are just starting out, I see so many like Loesch mimics, especially at like cons or on like Instagram search.
yeah, that's
And kind of
terrible.
going back to what you were saying about finding your voice or style, they're definitely just following right now. And
Yeah.
I want to see them push more into the other realms of like exploring their personal stuff. And I think even with color, you're right. I think there is some level of learning that maybe not necessary, but I think helps greatly. I mean, I work primarily with pencils. I'm a grayscale artist, and that's how people know me. But when I do jump into color work, um, I agree with you. Where like I have these certain palettes that I know have worked in the past, so I'm not like just
Mm,
blindly shooting colors and hoping that it'll work.
yeah.
Because I definitely agree with that when it comes to and color is a beast. It's not an easy thing to tackle, and I think
It's scary.
it's not like a something that can be taught like overnight or like through one book. I think it's definitely a lot of like experience, just playing
Hmm.
with it, knowing what works, and then kind of like what you were saying, understanding like what is the temperature of it, what's the difference between hue and saturation, things like that. But that's a
Yeah.
whole nother conversation. So I'll move
Yeah.
out of that. The next question is, how do you hope people see your work?
Well, um I hope they see my work the way I see Neil Gaiman's work, honestly. um I just love the feeling that that evokes, which is not this I can't describe it in words, I think. I think it's a there's a sense of wonder in there, I guess.
Hmm.
Um bit mysterious, but like you kind of want to know more about it, but you kind of like want to be I want to be in the head of Neil Gaiman to see what he thinks and how these stories like look more deeply and understand more of that because it's just so great. And I hope I could bring a bit of that into the world too. That I don't know, like whatever I create, people just would want to learn more about it because it feels very, um, I guess, I guess appealing. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny that you even bring him up. I read the first book I've read from him this year was The Sandman he did in collaboration with Amano,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
I
nice.
I was mesmerized by it. I like read through it in 2 days. I mean, it's a short book, but I'm a slow reader. uh, but you're right. It does have this weird, like you want to keep page turning because you want to know what happens next, and that intrigue. I do think it's kind of lost in the social media age because everything's like super fast digest and like consume it as fast as you can.
Yeah,
But sometimes I'll catch myself like if I really like a piece of work that I'm like scrolling through on Instagram, I'll like double tap like it and then keep going on. But I'm like, wait a minute, why? If I liked it, why not like explore it for a while? Like, why not look at it and like see what do I like about it? Like, what about it entranced me? But I think where we become so conditioned to like
yeah,
quick consume, and I think that's been a issue for myself, even like learning how to unlearn that. It's been very weird. So it's funny that you bring him
yeah,
up because he was another one of those examples of like the book where I was so engaged with it, and I'm rarely engaged with things to that level
yeah.
nowadays.
Well, he's got some, I mean, all of his books are great, but he's got some short stories that are really
Oh,
quick to read. And those are my favorite ones just because they're stories that might be, some of them maybe are 3 pages long, some of them maybe 30,
I need to
but
look this
that's the
up.
longest one. And they all have this feeling. And when you read them, you kind of get into this tunnel of I don't know, everything disappears for me at least. I think it's like one of the best type of joys that I've felt.
Yeah. No, I'm
Yeah,
looking it up right now. I'm like, I'm gonna look into actually. Oh, he did
yeah.
Snow Glass and Apples. I did not.
Oh, I
Man,
haven't read that one.
I see that one at conventions all the time, but I will look more into
Mm,
that because I love short stories, and I'm
yeah,
sure as since you've done books yourselves, I actually love children's books far more than I love adult books because I think usually there's like a message, or there's some kind of theme that you can consume in a rather quick amount of time. But I think it's always presented in such a lovely way. It doesn't feel like it's bogged down by details. It's very simple,
yeah.
clean, and I'm a big fan of that. So I will
It's
definitely
very
look
hard
into
to
his
do.
short stories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you've got a point in there because, and I'll shut up in a minute. But
No,
because
keep going. This is
picture
great.
books, picture books are like the core of something really big. You could create a whole movie or a whole series based on a picture book just because it has everything clear. And it's to me, it's one of the most challenging things I've done ever so far because you've got this huge idea that you've got to explain in very simple words with a metaphor to reach to both parents and kids, and that still looks like a very solid story. And it's just hard. So
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
Well, and have you ever read what's it? What was it? What do you do with an idea? I think it's called.
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Who's
I.
that from?
Oh God.
Can you maybe send it to me later?
I will send it to you after, yeah.
Yeah.
But he did
Okay.
like these. He did 3 books, and one of them's like, "What do you do with an idea?" And then like, "What do you do with?" Basically, it's really. like what you said, there's a core idea, but it's presented in such a great way that I think kids' books are actually really difficult to create. And it's something that it's hard for me to translate when I'm talking to people because I kind of understand why they're so difficult. Because it's so easy to like flesh out a story with just details upon details, and this is what you should care about, and this is what happened, and this is what the bar looked like. With a picture book, you don't have to describe the visuals really. You have to describe the core of an idea and then simplify it into like 10 to 30 pages, and I think it's actually quite difficult. So I give so much credit to children's book illustrators. I think partially because I wanted to become one for a while. Maybe
Oh,
one day I'll do one. But I, to be honest, I'm very curious about your books because I didn't even know that you had books until this week when I was doing research. Probably Instagram's fault for not showing me, but I had no idea you had more books besides Wonder. I would have definitely picked them up.
yeah, I have two more that I wrote and illustrated,
I had no
and
idea.
there's one more coming up really soon. Um, I've got, well, anyway, it's Once Upon a Unicorn, Once Upon a Unicorn Horn, that's the first one, and Once Upon a Dragon's Fire is the second one. And it just talks about how certain magical creatures got their features in the first place, but in a very different way.
Oh, it's so
Um,
cute.
but yeah,
I'll
yeah,
definitely pick them up though.
you're sweet.
Well, especially if you do
Hope you
more about
like
a
them.
mermaid, because mermaids are like I'm weirdly entranced to the folklore of mermaids, but I feel like a lot of people have not, or at least in media that I've seen, just do not do them justice.
Yeah, yeah, I
So,
agree.
so I'm very curious to see your mermaids.
It's gonna be different. That's true.
Okay, so going on to the next question. Oh, this one I'm very curious about. How do you balance the dual life of running a business, or in your case, I guess, making money doing your art direction, and then creating without monetary intention that with art that's purely for yourself?
Hmm. That's a tough one. But I think we've already talked about this a little bit, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's by bringing a bit of me into all the projects. So usually, and I say that because right now I don't have that, but I usually reserve some of the time for my personal project, whatever that might be. And that could even mean my next picture book, because if it's written and illustrated by me, it means that I can take all the creative decisions,
Mm-hmm.
almost all of them. Um, and then I have something on the side where I contribute to something that's more in a group. So in this case, it would be, for example, the show that I'm art directing. So
Yeah.
having that balance for me is really important because I learn from other people and I create something really cool alongside other people, like movies or shows or anything like that. It's just lovely because of that. I feel like I've learned doing this show more than I've learned in years of experience by my own, and that's amazing. But also having that time alone, doing your own stuff, it's great. And if I can't have both, what I try is to mix them in any way possible. So again, if I'm only doing this show, for example, I I pick or I get it because I have a role in where I can contribute with that thing that I'm missing on the other side, which in this case is my personal art.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is feeding into the show. Um, and that's something I guess that keeps it going, like it keeps the creativity going and the eagerness to create something really cool. That's part of myself in that way. And I don't know. I think if I didn't have that, if I couldn't put my personal bit into the work that I'm doing, I couldn't take it just because I mean I wouldn't take the job even if I don't make money because I'd rather not have money than
Yeah.
be like a machine. So
I
if that answers your question.
oof, I feel that too this year because I took on commissions and I normally don't do them, but I took on I
Mm.
think 19 altogether. And I'm not the fastest artist in the world, so every time I do one, like I really try to put thought and time into the rendering and the shading and whatnot. But near the tail end of them, I just did not enjoy not only the process, but then even what I was creating, I felt was lackluster. And I agree with you that if you don't inject yourself into what you're creating, it does become kind of stale. It becomes kind of bland. And then I
Yeah.
feel guilty because then the person that hired me to do it doesn't get what they want, and then I'm not getting what I want out of like creating and being an artist. So I
Yeah.
do think finding that balance is very important. But I feel like after talking with you even for a little bit, I feel like you're really good at finding balances and like knowing what you want versus what you don't want and kind of like heading the directions that you do want to go in.
I think it's more about staying true to oneself because there's definitely a point in a project where it becomes tiring or you start giving less of yourself, or like you said, there's a point in this commissions where you're just not enjoying it and both parts are not getting what they want. And I guess it's just, to me, it's just about when I reach that point in a project or in a personal thing, I I take a choice that's going to change that. I either change my attitude towards it so that I completely swift that up and find a way to bring that back into the project, or I leave it as good as it is. I mean, if it's a great project and it pays really well, if I'm not enjoying it, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna leave. And sometimes what that leads into leaving projects in the middle. But honestly, I don't mind about that. Again, because if I die tomorrow, I'm gonna
Yeah.
wanna have enjoyed everything that I've done, and I wanna create meaningful stuff to me and to everybody that sees it. So I don't think I want to be doing stuff that I'm gonna regret having lost time into or not enjoyed just for the sake of it, for what, for money or for what? It's just pointless to me. So
Yeah, and I always feel like I get trapped in feeling like I have to, but then whenever I
mm,
like take a step back from that, it's like questioning that, like, well, why do you have to? And then it's like, well,
yeah,
money, blah blah. It's like, well, no, you're doing all right with online sales or whatnot. Like, what's the real reason behind it? And I think there's always this level of I have to like keep going, keep going, keep going, and it's those times where I like slow myself down and like reanalyze the scene. That's when I start to like really, I don't know. I feel like I'm back on track, and then like what you said, I'm then able to make decisions where I go into the yes directions rather than feeling forced to go in that direction. And
yeah,
I think there's some artists out there. I hate to admit it, but I don't think I'm a freelance artist. I don't think I'm a commission artist, and that's okay. And I give a lot of credit to those who are. But I think as you do art, and the more that you go through your career as an artist, you learn what you're good at and what you're not good at. And more,
yeah,
I guess, what's more important is what you enjoy doing versus what you don't enjoy doing. And I need to like
absolutely.
remind myself to keep going down that path.
Yeah, it's very hard to stay true to oneself in that way, but I think it's what's going to make you enjoy every single day.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay, so the next question is, how do you overcome any art blocks that come your way?
Well, honestly, every time there is an art block, there is a personal block in
Mm-hmm.
myself. Like usually when I'm struggling with something that I'm doing, it's because I'm either facing facing a moment where I'm doing some personal growth, or I am seeing that my art is not as good as I think it could be. So it can just mean that it's going to be better if I put some time and effort into that. So there's sometimes that I'm just tired of doing what I'm doing, and when I that's one side of it. If that's the case, then I just grab whatever media I've never tried and I'm scared of, and I try it.
Ah!
So if it's gouache, I go paint with gouache, and something crappy comes up every time. And then the next one that I do, I've learned something from it, and I was like, oh, I can make it better. And I do another one. And in the meantime, I kind of like learn stuff and have fun by making mistakes. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like learning as I was a kid again, as if I was a kid again. And it brings joy to me. And that unblocks the art block. And I can apply those new knowledge bits into my thing that was kind of like stuck into this hole and it couldn't
Yeah.
come back up. That's one thing. And if I'm just tired of what I'm doing, I just switch into something else. I mean, same thing with like this realistic art that I was doing, kind of got tired and went into something else. And who knows? Maybe tomorrow I'm not doing art anymore and I'm just doing guitar. I mean, that can happen, and I'm completely okay with that.
I think that is, you are a much stronger person than a lot of us in being able to be like, you know what, this whole career that I've built up, nah, I'm gonna play the guitar because that's the way I'm feeling. But you're right. I think that's how it should be in a lot of ways. Is like just pursuing passion because that's probably the best output that you're gonna get is when you're like following your passion like full heartedly. Because
Yeah,
for all you know, you could become like one of the best guitar players. But if you always had that fear of, well, I already have this art established career, like I
yeah,
can't, you know. I think we always justify actions through a lot of fear. And I know
yeah,
I do, so I'm no exception. So
yeah.
it's kind of great hearing that from you. All right.
It's a big
So
struggle.
is it though for
Go
you?
ahead.
I feel like you're pretty.
No, in general, I
Oh,
think
okay.
like that's something that shouldn't be omitted. And I mean, it's a struggle for me too. Don't get me wrong. It's something that I keep fighting against, but I think I always want to be proud of myself for choosing in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier every time. And overcoming that fear makes me be more fearless for the next choices. And that makes me enjoy
Yes.
more every single day, which is the part that's more fun.
I okay. Here, I want to know this too because I feel like the artists that I talk to that seem to be established or very confident in what they're doing, each one of them that I've talked to privately have had a moment in their life where they either had to say no to like a big opportunity or they were in like a well-paid job and they had to like quit to follow their passion. And it's like a big life-changing event, but after that point, whatever it may be, they're so much more confident in who they are and they know what they like and what they want. And have you had that moment in your past where you could have gone this one route, but you were like, nope, and then like totally went the other way?
Yeah, yeah, several times. I think that's a constant flow that I kind of, I mean, especially social media artists have to
Yeah.
go through because you kind of like, again, get famous or whatever for something that you did, but that's not what you want to do. But people keep asking you to do that. And even if it's big opportunities, like something that you always wanted to do, sometimes you just have to follow your own thing. Like, for example, with, I mean, there's a great example with the unicorn book that I did. I wanted to do books that have a moral and some values and that show stories that are meaningful to me or that I think are cool. I mean, whatever. So um, I'll try to keep it short. But
No, no, I like this. This is great.
I I got hired. I got contacted by an agency, and we were working for a bit together. And then at some point, they were like, "Oh, do you have your own stories?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And they're like, "Oh, send us over some of the stuff." And I sent them some stories, and I sent them some illustrations that I had. And by the time I had this illustration that I don't know why I did that illustration, to be honest, but it was a mother unicorn with baby unicorns right by her side. I mean, it was very cheesy. I don't even know. I don't even know why I did that. But a publisher was very interested in a story from that. And they're like, could you write a story about unicorns? And I was like, I can. So I wrote a story about unicorns that was unusual and went back to the publisher, and the publisher got back to me. I mean, a publisher was interested in a story. They wanted me to write it and to illustrate it. And that was like what I wanted by the time. And I was very young. I think I was like 24 at the time. And that was like a big deal. And they came back to me and they're like, oh, we like your story, but we were thinking more of like a mother unicorn changing diapers that have like rainbow poop inside, and like the unicorns like pooping rainbows and like farting,
What?
whatever crap they were saying. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do that. And they're like, yeah, but I mean, of course, it was a struggle because it was like, it's my first book. I could do a book right now. I mean, I could write it. It's not a question of am I able to. it was more a question of do I want to do that? Is that what I
Yeah.
want to do? And obviously it wasn't. So I said no, and I stuck to my story. And someone else came, my current publisher came to me, and they loved that, and they wanted to do that. And that's the kind of stories that I could bring up into the world in that way. So again, there might be worse than what I could do today and whatever. Like we keep growing, we keep changing,
Yeah.
but I think staying strong to what you want to tell and the way you want to tell things, because that's the way you are and the way you're going to be portrayed forever.
Hmm.
Staying strong to those beliefs is the thing that will make you grow and will make you enjoy every single step in that way. So.
Yeah, you were close to being associated with rainbow unicorn poop.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. Yeah, in the face of the diapers of the next generation. No.
It's so bizarre that that is what's popular. Like I go
Yeah,
to toy stores when I shop for my nieces and nephews, and there are just some
yeah.
bizarre toys that are popular nowadays. I'm like, what is going on?
Yep, yep.
So as you were talking, I was like, does not surprise me. Does not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
All right,
No.
next question is, how do you think art has defined who you've become?
Well, that's tough.
Yeah.
Um, I guess in the same way that I've affected on my art, like it just goes around. It's like a snake just going around. Um, I guess by finding my voice into my art and what I want to do and what I want to talk about, I kind of rediscovered a bit of myself too. And I've rediscovered
Mhm.
what I truly enjoy, because when I really portray that into my art is when the most beautiful pieces appear, and that goes back in. So to me, it feels like this is going to be weird, but it's like an orange to me. To If the orange has juice inside, which I acquire by enjoying stuff, I'm full of that like beautiful, beautiful orange. When
Yeah.
I squeeze it, I have this art, and I just give you this juice that's based on all these experiences and joy. But there's a point where the orange is squeezed. There's no more juice, and there's no way to get it from that orange because it's already drying up. So
Yeah.
um, I think that's where most of my art blocks come, and it's because I'm trying to like squeeze my brain from the same type of joy that I was feeling before. But I have to rediscover myself and redefine what I really want to do.
Yeah.
And there's a fear, as we talked about before, there's a fear of going out and enjoying something different because maybe you want to do some different type of art and you're not allowed to do that. So you really stop enjoying and you start squeezing and overworking and over squeezing something that you're not really liking. To me, it's more about stopping doing whatever I'm doing that I'm not enjoying, standing up, going outside, and doing things that make me feel happy. Um, at some point, I started doing something that I've never done before every single day. So sometimes it could just be going out and jumping into a lake in January.
Ah!
Sometimes it could just be lighting up a nice candle that I've never smelled before. So little tiny things that would make me feel this joy, and it worked in that case, right?
Yeah.
And I think it just evolves and it just changes. So that's very important, I think.
I mean, that's such a great way of looking at it, because in the case if you're the tree, like the artist is the tree, and the oranges are what you're producing, you gotta like
Yeah.
absorb nutrients or the water or the things around you, to then put into your craft. And I love that analogy because I've definitely been the one that, like, squeezing a dried orange and just like expecting something great to come out, but it's like you can't. Uh, And I think there's a lot of other artists out there that, you know, they need to step away from their workstation. Like I said, I feel like you have a lot of things figured out. As I'm like talking to you, I'm like, man, she's really got it. Like, she's good to go. Because I don't do that enough myself, and these are more reminders of like take a day for yourself or whatever. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's great talking to you because I can feel that energy within you, and I feel like you're definitely a powerhouse of decision making, and I'm definitely someone that will just like keep pushing even if the orange is dry, and I need to like, you know, not do that all the time.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Enjoy. That's the key of everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, next question is, what is the best advice to an artist just starting out? So, from your perspective, and then also to an artist struggling with where they're at. So, it's kind of a two-parter. So someone just starting out, and then someone that may be like a year, 5 years, but they're not making much progress.
I'm going to say the same thing, and it might sound strange, but it's the same for both. And enjoy. I mean, that's my that's what I would say to everybody. When for the ones that are starting, enjoying what you're doing might seem too off the topic just because you're trying to pursue something that you don't know how to achieve. But it was to me the moment that I started enjoying what I'm doing
Yeah.
and really putting stuff that I truly, truly wanted to tell, even if people didn't want to hear it. I mean, um, it's the moment where I started defining myself and my art, and my style just came with it. Um, and more drawings, and I guess not pushing yourself a lot so that you struggle doing what you're doing, therefore you're not enjoying. I
Yeah.
think the more you love what you're doing, the more you want to do, and the more you struggle, the more you just torture yourself with the things you can't do. But it's the things you can do that are going to lead you to the things that you can't do at the moment, but you will do as
Yeah.
you learn. So enjoying that is what you have at the moment, and enjoying that is what you'll have whenever you've achieved that, which is like for the ones that have achieved that. It's very easy to get stuck into all these things that we've been talking about, into a work and a paycheck, and especially if you have families or things to care about. Um,
Hmm.
but there's always that question that how can I make this that I have at the moment into something that I I can wake up every morning to really looking forward to doing. There's always a way. It's like when they give you text to illustrate, it might sound super weird and you don't really like it, but there's a way to make it super beautiful and super appealing. It's just about clicking and making it so that it appeals to you and so that it has meaning to you and so that you enjoy every single day, because it's just a struggle to wake up every morning and
Hmm.
not want to do what you have to do. I mean, that's not what I want in my life.
No.
So there's always a way, I think, and if that way is stepping away from your art, go do it. If that way is trying gouache and or trying stained glass, go do it. Um, but don't get lost. I guess that's also for me. Don't get lost into what you're doing just because it feels like you're good at it, even if you're not enjoying it.
Hmm. It's funny that we have to remind ourselves to actually create work that appeals to us.
Yeah,
And I forget this far too often, and I feel like I'm just creating because I have to. And like I set schedules for myself, and I have a bunch of projects where I'm like, well, I have to for this hour work on this. Um, but I'm sure you've realized this too. The more that you force a project, the worse the results seem to be. And every now and then you'll like create something that you're like, wow, that's really great. But I feel like it's usually because then you enjoyed the process of art making, and then you kind of like found that joy again, which is a lot of us found when we were kids and what drawing gave us. Uh,
yeah,
so I think it's just a good reminder to create stuff that appeals to you first and foremost. Because if it doesn't appeal
yeah,
to you, why are you even making it?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But I think that's a social issue right there because
Mm-hmm.
the joy comes from after doing that painting, comes from the moment where you see people's reactions. And
Yes.
that kills the joy, that kills the process entirely because you're doing something that you think it's going to work well for you, the target that you're aiming for. I mean, what the hell? I'm sorry, but what?
No,
Is
you're
that
totally right.
a life? That's not a life, especially an artist's life. We're very sensitive in general because to create art in the first place, we have to like be sensitive about stuff and be very aware of what's around us. So being there just for other people's approval is it can kill you, I think,
Yeah.
personally.
I feel so bad for the younger generation of artists growing up where
Mm,
they have Instagram when they're 13. Uh,
yeah.
I am afraid that a lot of artists are going to be catering what they're creating for what you said, the reaction. And
Mm,
I'm so glad I didn't have social media until I was like in my early 20s because I could have seen, even when I was in school, everyone like comparing how well they do on um,
mm,
Instagram or whatever platform. And that's how they kind of measure up, so to say. And
yeah.
I want young artists specifically to hear that it's kind of like what you've been saying this whole stream. Like you got to create for yourself first and foremost because getting a following or getting a lot of likes is kind of a byproduct of a lot of artists who are just very genuine with themselves. And I think I forget that along the way, even with doing pencil work all the time. And um, it's it's something that I think younger artists are so consumed with on almost like a
Mm,
daily basis that it's hard for them to explore or hard for them to try new things because they feel so pressured to give like a standard. And like what you said, everyone's becoming kind of a follower now because they're taught
mm.
to see what works on Instagram and then follow that method or follow that way of
Yeah.
working. And I don't know. I'm
But
I'm curious to see how it goes.
yeah, me too. If you think back though, I think it's kind of the same. It's just in a bigger amount of people. Like if you go back in time with the artists, like it's always been kind of the same thing. It was just like less people and less visible. But
True.
I think it depends on the type of human. Like there's definitely going to be a lot of people that are going to be that follower type of people that we talked about. But there's a few of them that, I mean, we're humans after all, and we have similar minds or different ways of processing life. And I think there's certain type of people that even if they're 13 and they've achieved their life goals already, um, or like all the followers that we will have in our entire life, they're going to figure out some people at some point that that's not what they want to do. Because if not, if you think about it, all that we would see around us would be Disney because people would have followed that that already works and makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
But still, we have beautiful new things that are definitely different. And we do have the branch that follows everything that Disney does.
Yeah.
And we still have the people that only like the things that come from Disney. That's okay. Because there are people trying to open another path and trying to show and tell different stories. I think that that will all.
Oh wait, your audio cut out. Ah!
Am I on
Oh, there.
again?
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, my headphones just died. That's probably it.
Disney was listening in on the stream. They're like, "No, we gotta cut her off." Like,
Sorry, Disney. No, I love Disney, but that's another
yeah,
conversation.
that's it. Yeah, I totally get what you mean with that too, because I love Disney growing up, but I think they kind of set like the protocol, the standard, and
Mm,
it's very easy to go down that path.
yeah.
And it's not a bad path necessarily, but is it the path for you? And I think a lot of people need to be honest with: is this my path, or am I just doing it because I think I have to?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't think people realize, or a lot of people realize that they can have a successful career and they can be happy just by doing what they want. And that's like the dream. That's the weird stuff. It feels weird that you can do whatever you want and be happy and have money to live.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a very bold decision. It's something that you gotta have a lot of courage to do that because
you're seeing what works. You know that you could have that money, that recognition, but you're not taking it. You're going somewhere else just because it makes you happy. Woohoo. But that's it. That's it. That's the core of everything. And that's where all the new beautiful stuff gets created from. It couldn't be any other way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And then for the final of the 10 questions is, what advice would you give about being authentic in your work? I feel like this whole stream has been very much that. But if you would like sum it up.
Yeah. I guess like don't be afraid to make decisions that feel that staying true to yourself. I made that whole sentence wrong, but basically stay true to yourself and be honest and bold with your decisions. And I guess fear is very, it's a very tricky thing to deal with, and it's always behind the back. And seeing again what works is very juicy in life. But following whatever makes you happy in every single moment. It might sound cheesy again, but it's what's gonna make you very unique. I mean, I didn't have the same experiences that you had, right? And that's probably what bled into our art now. What we like, who we are, what kind of choices we make, and
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
everything shows in your art. And I'm not the same as everybody in this world. I mean, I hope to be a little different. And I think that's the reason why all the art cannot be the same. And that's the reason why it's very exciting to hear that someone else wants to do art or is doing art, because it means that you're going to see a little bit more of themselves. And that's what's unique about the art. It's not about a style that you're creating. It's not about, I don't know, it's just about being yourself and not trying to become anyone else. You're building yourself up, and that's about it. There's nothing more to that.
No, that's great. Well, and I know as like an artist, like I guess the question is, what does that mean to you, like being an artist?
I guess being able to express what I feel through some media that I don't have to be talking or where I don't have to be talking or explaining all the time. I mean, doing a podcast can be art as well. But I guess sharing feeling into something that I could just give up to someone without me being present in a way.
Yeah, that's great.
So they can
Well,
feel.
technically, those were all 10 of the questions. So now we usually open it up to the floor, so all the people watching right now. And then as people are kind of typing out their messages, I'm trying to think of like one that stuck with me that I want to ask you personally. I know you talked a little bit about like working day to day. What is your way of like dealing with stress with a deadline that you have to finish? Like something you couldn't just walk away from?
I try to find a way to enjoy doing it. So if I'm really struggling and I don't want to be doing that, it's because I did that decision and probably I shouldn't have, and I'll learn for the next time. But usually I try to put whatever's around me in the best possible way. So I try to get good music that I'm going to enjoy while doing it, or any kind of thing that makes this moment that's present really enjoyable. And it really becomes a moment that I could actually treasure instead of a hateful moment. And I think that's something that you can learn and teach yourself as well. It's not something that just comes naturally to someone. But again, it all goes back to the same, like enjoying that moment in any possible way, even if it's a dreadful thing to do. I don't know. To me, music is very helpful in general. So again, if I'm doing something that I don't want to do, if I get good music, I'm like good to go.
Do you normally listen to music while you're working? And does the music, I guess most people do. But better question: do you normally cater the music to associate with the subject matter you're working on?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I have playlists for every single book I've written and
Eh.
for every book I've read. So when I listen to them again, I can feel part of the story, even as weird as that sounds.
Oh no, I
um,
totally get that. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Well, and the other question I had was, do you feel like during this COVID time, did you either pick up like a new habit or something strange that you weren't doing before? Or was there like something you watched that maybe you wouldn't have normally that like really inspired you? Where you're like, wow, that was great. Like that was something I'll remember.
Mm, I don't know. Because this times have been weird because I've moved and I've been so busy that I haven't really like taken in a lot of stuff. But I guess all the experiences on the new show have been life changing for me in many ways. So seeing, I mean, it's not exactly answering your question, but it does in a way. Seeing how all these people that are my team right now,
Hmm.
they're artists that I loved before being on the show and being able to work with them. It's been such an amazing experience in my life that even if it's not like again something I've seen like a movie or some habit that I've taken, just being able to have that during these times and focusing on that because I didn't have anything around me to
Hmm.
focus a bit more on it. It's been really life changing. I've learned so much from different people and from myself too, like what to do and what not. And I feel like I've grown up like 10 years in 6 months. It's crazy.
Well, because this is the first time you were an art director, right?
For a TV show, yeah. I've done feature before, like an
Mm.
animation movie. But yeah, this is way like bigger and cooler. It's gonna be great. It's beautiful already.
Because I'm assuming the team that you're working with is rather large, especially for like an animation studio. What is
Mm.
that like tackling managing while also trying to like contribute artistically? Because even for me, I struggle with managing like 2 to 3 people. I couldn't even imagine having a team that I'm like supposed to be managing and then also like contributing.
It's very hard for me because it's mainly my own style in general, and I've got to like feed that into so many artists and like background and characters, and there's all these things and all these meetings that are more technical, and then it loses the magic of like creating in general. And exactly that balance that you talked about, it's really hard. And I think that's why most artists love pre-production, just because it's when you dump all these ideas and all this care and love, and then you start just like producing, and everything has a deadline, and everything becomes ugly and dark. Um, but even then, because you're starting to see everything that's coming in,
Yeah.
all the art that people are delivering. Right now, I'm barely doing any art. I'm just like supervising everything that comes in. It's good to go and all of that. But even that is a constant feed of seeing how everything is better and better. And this thing is like building up itself um, by some pillars that I constructed alongside some other people, and it's just so amazing. I think it keeps that balance in a way that even though the task is more dreadful, because it's like
Yeah.
just a pile of lists and it's very ugly, you can kind of see what everybody's doing based on that effort that you did before, and that's the wonderful part of it. Yeah, I guess.
I mean, that's such a beautiful way of looking at it. I like the whole pillar metaphor, or not metaphor, analogy.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, we got some user questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right, this one's from Eric. Says, have there ever been a time when having art as a job has taken away the enjoyment of it? Some people do not like it having it as a job.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. But I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to take less stuff, but just stuff that I loved. And there's been times where I've struggled more, but there's like a middle ground, and in the end,
Hmm.
I think you can be comfortable and confident that everything that you're taking you enjoy, and that feeds on to more things like that. Just the moment you start choosing accurately, more things like that start to come your way. Um, and then you're able to like choose as good as some and as bad as that
Yeah.
that ones. Because
I mean,
then you've got great projects to choose in between, and it's just very hard to say yes or no to some.
so do you kind
But
of believe in the law of attraction and like manifesting like what you want to see in the world?
pardon, can you say that again?
Oh, sorry. Do you know about like the law of attraction? And it's the idea of like if you want something, you have to truly believe that you're gonna get it, and then like slowly but surely the universe will listen or whatever, and then you'll receive it. But you
Yeah.
have to believe it, you know. And you seem like someone that is very good at like believing in not only yourself but like your goals or what direction you want to take. It's very refreshing talking with you because you just seem to have such a good head on your shoulders with this clarity of your path. And this year's has been really weird for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people may be listening and watching as I'm like reading the comments. It's very refreshing. So just know that you are definitely inspiring a lot of people in the chat today.
That's great to hear. I mean, there's always going to be hard times, like, and I think this year especially, but as we
Mhm.
move forward and as I become more adult, I can see that there's always something to suffer about and something to hate and something to not like or be sad about. Um, but in the end, what we're doing is we're trying to learn a bit more about who we are and what we want to do. And I mean, I sound horrible right now because I keep saying this, but it's all about enjoying. And these things that might seem dreadful, or um, your thing that you just said about attracting the things that you want and showing that into the universe, that's exactly it. You're enjoying something, you're showing it out there, and because
Mhm.
people like it, they want more of that. It's as simple as that, I think. So to me,
Yes.
it's more a matter of like, just stay true to what you want to do, even if that's scary as hell, because that's the only way you're gonna get what you want, by showing what you like. Like, for example, right now, as an art director, I got to choose the core team. And it was hard because I knew that there were some people that could be good at something, but I wasn't sure if they wanted to do that. So I didn't offer the job to some of them.
Oh.
So if I saw that they wanted to do that and that they liked that, I would have contacted them. You know what I mean? Like, there's also part of like, you might have very clear ideas of what you want, but if you don't show them and if you don't express them or like put them out there, people that can hire you or that can bring you into these new projects, they're not going to know that that's what you want. So
Yeah.
um, just do it.
No, that's great. Uh, I'll keep asking some of the questions because I don't want to get too backlogged. Because I have a tendency to ramble, so I feel bad because then I like ask you my own questions, but I'm like, focus on the user questions. This one's from Jonathan Liddell, and he says, Beatrice, when you delivered on a piece, whereas you said you didn't enjoy it, but you did deliver on it, how do you find you can bounce straight back, or do you need to re-energize? And if so, how?
Well, I try not to do that again anymore. If that happens, it's tough. I think at the moment I do that, if I did that, but
Yeah.
I think I'm comfortable and confident that I do that less and less. And I think that's one of my goals in life. I want to deliver or show just things that I like. And that might be a sketch or something that to you it appears horrible. But to me, it's great because I love doing it. And you can see that on some of my posts as well, or my website. There's some drawings that you're like, what is this kid doing? But to me, it means something, and I liked it even more than a super rendered thing that I might have done. I don't know. Or like even these drawings that you saw from before, they're good. I like them from 10 years ago. they're like figure drawing things and they're beautiful, yeah, talented, whatever. I don't care, because I don't want people to feel in awe with my art. I want people to be interested by what I want to say, and I want to have an interesting conversation, even if it's without words.
That's great.
I don't care what the drawing looks like, and I think that's very important, and that's part of the joy. You know what I mean?
Oof, I get so wrapped up into how the drawing looks. That's very hard for me to swallow. It's like this really big pill. Because I think for me, I'm always like, I have to be better than my last piece, like on a technical level. And I think that it's such a sabotage to my work, because then it's very hard for me to like want to do a big idea or a big drawing or illustration, because then there's this pressure of it has to be better than the last one.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what you're saying of, no, just go back to what you enjoy doing. And even if it's like drawing a frog, something really simple, or I really like drawing little dirt kids, I call them, like little things with flowers on their heads. I think if I put as just much as love into that as like a really big illustration, it really shouldn't matter what the reaction to the social media public is. But admittedly, I get caught into catering. So I don't know. That's great advice. I think that's really good advice. Next question is from Art of Price. Love Sean. He says, do you remember the exact moment when you started to not give a crap and went after what you loved?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely certain moments, like it's not just one moment where I'm just like standing up and saying, I don't give a crap anymore.
For some reason, I can picture you doing that though.
I mean, that would be cool. It's more like internal epiphanies, I guess, of like, why am I doing that if I don't like doing that? Mm-hmm. And there's definitely more as I move forward and as I try different things. But that's because I also try different things, and I don't find comfort in comfort. I find comfort in the current joy. And I think that's always going to happen, honestly. It's very tough to think about it and to admit it and accept that, but I'm always going to have this type of epiphanies just because I hope to want to keep learning all the time. Yeah. I hope that I'm going to have these moments where I think that what I'm doing is not good enough, or I'm not enjoying it enough, so I need to do something else or enjoy doing something different. That's the fun of it, I think. And I think that's how I grow in general, and how I keep doing and having all these experiences. So I think the first one, if to answer your question, because I always go to something else. To answer your question, yeah, I guess when I came back from New York, I met Danny and I saw what Danny was doing, and he was doing an animation movie. And I was like, what is that thing that you've got over there? And I kind of wanted to do that. Like, I wanted to be able to create stuff from my mind. That seemed like magic to me. And I just dumped everything I had, like all my oil paintings, and I just stopped doing that. And that was a disaster too, because then I missed it, and I had to find the balance again later on. But there's, as you can see, there's all these moments where I have like this epiphany. It's like, I want to do this a different thing. I want to find the balance. I want to keep finding balance. So everything that we've talked about, I think, through this chat definitely has these moments all over the place.
Right. Gosh, you're so lovely to talk to. There were like a couple things where like you said it and I was like, oh, like I want to talk about that. And I was like, oh, that's another really good point. The one that really hit me was, you don't find comfort in comfort. But that's so great, because I think that's putting into words how I felt about after you become established. No one talks about this. It's like, or I don't want to say established, that sounds very arrogant. Once you receive some level of like recognition, or like financially you're stable, life does become a little more comfortable. And it's weird, because then there's no longer that like drive, or at least I didn't have that same passion that I did when I was like in my early 20s. And I was like, I'm roughing it, I'm making it, I'm barely being able to afford food, but God, I love drawing until 3 a.m. in the morning every night. And now that I'm at a different place in my life, I don't need to like hustle as hard, and I kind of miss that about myself. And I'm like, when did my fire become so like small and like so catered and so like clean, where before I was like this wildfire that was like spurting out all these weird colors, and now it's like this very condensed black and white fire that I'm like, nope, this is the only thing that my fire can be. So it's kind of great hearing that statement, like I don't find comfort in comfort, because that is exactly how I feel. I don't feel comfortable with where I am right now because I'm too comfortable. And it's such a weird thing to say out loud, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're spot on with that.
It's hard to admit that and to accept that, and I think that's definitely one of these moments that we just talked about. That's in constant flow. Like I might be okay now, but maybe tomorrow I'm having one of these moments. It's not
an artist's life.
Yeah, exactly. That's life. But it has the beauty of it. I think to me, it's like a rope. Sometimes it's more tight than others. But that's the organic bit about that. If not, we become robots. And that's not fun, especially for art. Like,
no.
We want to be able to be organic in that way and to learn and grow again within that. So now that you know, for example, how to make that money and how to be established, you've got all these tools to work with. So you're not the same as you were before, but you can mix those two. What happens if you mix that colorful fire with the tools that you have right now? That's pure magic that you've got right there. You've got to try it. I mean, it's like
I feel like you're definitely inspiring me from just even this interview, because even like I've been talking about wanting to do stained glass all year. I even bought a light box for it, but I'm not actually like pursuing it because I'm like, well, no, that's not priority. Like I need to definitely do these things. It's like, is it though, Tim? Like, are you just
are priority?
Get out of here.
It's true. Like when I'm seeing, I kind of like see myself into what you're saying a lot, because I force myself to be better, and like every drawing has to be better, and every job has to be better than before. But kind of like get lost into that a lot, and I lose the joy. And then when we talked about this already, but when I find myself the most is when I do these things that give myself a priority, like when I give myself a moment to feel that joy and to do these things that I want to do, like that stained glass. It's when that feeds onto everything else I do, like my love life, my family life, my art, my work, everything else, just because I feel that joy, I feel that power. It's like kind of like a potion in Breath of the Wild that you just take and you're like full of life again. And it's just great.
And isn't it funny how you can kind of concoct the potion to give you life again?
Yeah.
But oftentimes we choose not to.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I should mention, a lot of people might not know who Danny is because we've mentioned him a few times, but he is your partner, and I'm actually interviewing him next Friday. Another one I'm very excited to talk with. I think you two are what a lot of people consider to be like the art power couple. I know that term gets thrown around all the time, but you two are special because whenever I see you guys post about each other, it's not just like it's almost never about promoting each other's work. It's very much about promoting, like I see you talk very heavily about how much you love the person that he is. And I think you guys have a very special relationship because I think everyone wants like this like power couple dynamic, or a lot of artists do. But I think especially what I've pursued in not dating artists has been finding someone that I feel inspires me as like a person. And I feel like you found that with him. And it's very beautiful when I see you guys post about each other. And even his foreword in your book, I thought it was just so well written, because to me it shows how much you guys understand and know each other. And I just wanted you to know, I think it's very beautiful what you guys have.
Thank you. Definitely is. Very lucky to.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Yeah.
So for any of you who want to hear me talk to Danny next week, it'll be next Friday.
Yeah.
And his work is very different than yours in some ways. I feel like you have definitely, at least in my opinion, I feel like you've definitely inspired his direction in some ways, especially with like the color and a lot of this like free form. But he's one of those artists I consider to be the most multifaceted that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because if you put any medium in front of him and he'll just adjust to it.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's mesmerizing. For what you said before, also, I think we've kind of like merged in a very nice way. I've acquired so many things from him that I've learned so much about design and about, again, shapes and volumes and drawing in general. And I think he's learned from me a lot about color, and we've like kind of grown at the same time. I think it's 5 years or 6, I don't even know. Have been like, so, yeah, we're married. I don't even know when we did that.
5 or 6, give or take.
Yeah, give or take 5 or 10. But yeah, I think we've definitely grown together in a beautiful way. And he's amazing. I cannot begin to explain. Like right now, he's in the team of this thing the show that I'm doing, and it's just amazing. Like you give him a character, and it's the best character you've seen.
Yeah.
You give him an environment. He builds you a world. He builds you everything. You give him a color to do, and he does these beautiful colors, and you're like, man, you're disgusting. It's just great. It's amazing. Yeah, really cool to watch. I've got this. I've got a page of. I'll show you. He's probably not going to be happy about this.
Yes.
In front of my table.
Insider information.
This page that he did for a workshop that he threw on the garbage the other day, and I just got it back and put it in front of my laptop. Like I need to see this every day. It's just like, I mean, to him it's just scribbles, but it's like a bunch of drawings that are like the most amazing
these are
thing
so
you've
cute.
seen in a day. I mean,
Oh,
not
yeah,
sure
why
if
did you
you
throw
can-
this out?
I'm not sure if you can see very well, but the whole page is just like drawings, very, very like soft. Oh, this is upside down. Very soft, but so beautifully done and so smooth and like, I don't know.
Ooh, I like that one a lot.
It's so good. I don't know. Sucks.
Well, that's what's so funny is, I mean, I feel that way about you though too. You both have this like handling of shape language where you can create a character with like very simple lines or shapes, but it's so dynamic. It's not just like a familiar silhouette. It does feel different. And I mean, even with these little sketches that you just showed me, that the frog, I mean, there are so many frog warriors or like mages or sages or whatever they were, but a lot of the silhouettes were very like extended proportions and they were like interesting design. And I'm always very intrigued by artists that have that ability to just like throw like random shapes and it still is cohesive. Because I think a lot of artists throw shapes, but you're like, well, kind of off. But I think both
Oh, what
of
are
you
you
have that
saying? Your
ability.
art is great.
Well, but I think looking at my own work, it's very what's a good way to describe it? I feel like I'm not quick. I'm not good at like quick gestural, but when I do, every now and then I'll surprise myself. I'm like, oh, that was a really great silhouette, and that was like a little scribble. This might be a little too much information, but I feel like I don't trust myself with small designs or like shape designs because I feel like my strength is in rendering, and I feel like I rely on that too much, and it's like I always go back to what my professor told me in college. He was like, you can polish he would use profane language, but basically you can polish poop as much as you want, but at the end of the day you're just going to have a polished turd. And I feel that way about my art sometimes, where if the proportions are like stiff, like sometimes I draw things very stiff and I need to like relax a bit and like have fun with the initial stages. And when I look at, I mean, once again, both of you have that like that fun quality to your work that I feel is often missing with my own. And it probably is a reflection of personality. You seem very like free flow and I'm gonna go in nature and have fun, where I definitely feel more like regimented right now, and it reflects in the art. So I think that's why it's nice talking with you and artists that have this more, I don't know, free form sensibility to them. And what?
Oh, Sorry to cut you.
Oh no,
I
I'm
think
rambling at this point, so it's probably good that
something
you cut me
that
off
Danny
anyways.
something that Danny does all the time that I learned from him, and I think kind of gave me that, just in case this sounds appealing to you, is to have a sketchbook and just draw randomly a page every day. And it's impressive how you start being very, like, I started being very stiff, and my shapes were like just like, and it was even just with pen, like I wanted to do this perfect thing right there. And then the more I saw his sketches, it was more of like he tries a shape and he kind of likes something, but he would change something, and instead of erasing it, he tries again nearby. And if you see his drawings, he always has two colors, so he kind of like draws on top of that other one, so it kind of like doesn't give importance to it,
Oh.
and it kind of loses the fear. Like honestly, I have a sketchbook from like, I mean, he fills one in like a month, but I have one from like 3 years ago. And I keep like, I keep looking back, and it's so different. It's so there's so much more flow and so much more
Yes.
dynamism into the new ones just by taking the fear away. As funny as that might sound,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's more about falling in love a bit less with your drawings and just wanting to have more fun with them in a way, to me.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I feel like this is something that is very much across the board for a lot of artists, is a lot of the times our work becomes kind of stiff because we're losing sight of the fun aspect.
Yeah.
So that's a great reminder.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple more questions and then I won't take any more of your time. This one's from, let's see, James Roll says, how is the stability of being an artist as a job?
Stability in which way though? Like mental stability, money
Ooh.
stability? I guess
Stability of
I'll
being-
answer both.
Yeah, yeah.
Money stability, it depends on the type of job. So if you go from animation project to animation project, it's kind of like similar paycheck, especially if you're in LA with the type of jobs that they have. So it's always like a current paycheck and stuff. If you're an illustrator, that changes because you kind of like go with books and royalties, and it depends. So money wise, I guess I kind of like adapt from time to time to what I have on the table. So sometimes I decide to take less jobs, or I have less jobs, or more illustration stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so paychecks come like every 4 months or once in a year even. And I've got to like adapt my whole year to that.
Wait, once a
but-
year?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
What?
Yeah. And I have to like
It's like stressing me out thinking about.
Yep. But at least I have more time, which means that I have more time to explore and to enjoy, and then I have more eagerness to do stuff. As for other times, like right now, I have a great paycheck and I have a great steady job, but I'm more bored, and I can explore a bit less around me. And to me, that's a treasure bigger than money. So I think it's more like a balance, knowing that I'm gonna have a time with less money and less stable work, but I want that. Even if I get offered another job, I probably won't take it because I need that time. And then constantly flowing towards that keeps my balance, both monetary wise and mental, in my mental health, because I kind of need that in a way, that bit for myself and to create my own stuff, and again do things with other people, or for other people.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, not getting paid once a year stresses me the hell
Oh, well,
out.
yeah.
That is great advice.
Yeah.
And I guess the last thing I would love for you to talk about is your childhood week. And I feel like we definitely got to talk about it because I see you do it. I feel like it's like twice or three times a year.
Yeah, it's twice. One in summer and one in winter, yeah.
And I love seeing, I mean, both you and Danny do great stuff, but I love seeing what other people do too. Because a lot of the times it's like connections, obviously childhood week, it's connections that we all kind of share through like a collective childhood that we all like experience bits and pieces here and there. So I wanted to let you talk about it and like why you created it, because I'm kind of curious too.
Hmm. Uh, well, it started because of this first book that I was illustrating. It's funny because the name was The Most Horrible Kid in the World. That was the title. And I mean,
Wait,
that doesn't
what?
sound appealing at all, especially if you're going to illustrate. And I thought, damn it, like I really want to illustrate this book because it's my first one. And it's a great publisher and whatever, but the book, I mean, and I read it and it was okay, but I had to draw this most horrible kid in the world every single time. And so I had to find a way to enjoy it and to have fun with the book and to make it mine and to feel proud of it. So I kind of like, it was a process of trying to find that. And I remember the movie Matilda from the 90s.
Yeah.
That was like one of my favorite movies when I was little. And there was a mood in that movie that I kind of like, I don't know, I kind of wanted to try in this book. So I started thinking, what if I tried to make this book kind of like feel like if it was that Matilda movie in that way, even though it doesn't have anything to do with it. So I kind of like wanted to bring the mood, just that mood. And that brought me into toys and things that I had when I was little. And it felt so much joy and so much connection to, again, who I am and what kind of thing I wanted to draw. And when I started drawing that and painting that kind of things, I felt real joy. And maybe at some point I stopped doing that, but it was the jump start to everything for me in a way.
Yeah.
And I kind of like want to share that with other people. Like, we are who we are because of certain experiences that we went through. What if we just look into those, as good or as bad as it might be, and we just share them? And by sharing something that you experienced in a way that you want to envision it, you're kind of illustrating already. You're doing that job, and you're doing it from something that you chose. It's something that brings you a feeling, and that's kind of it. I think seeing how people reacted to that and wanting to share that feeling with everybody else just made it super cool and something that to look forward to every year, honestly.
No, I think it's great. Yeah, good for you. I like that you started this little thing and it really took off.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this winter one. I've been wanting to contribute, especially one of the past prompts. It was like a dead set on something I was interested in. So I'm hoping this winter I can actually do one of them. Because like I said, I think finding that joy within art, I think it's kind of fun then to explore that within, your childhood and things that you found intriguing back then, and pulling that back into the light.
Mm-hmm.
So, honestly, this has been such a wonderful interview and talk with you. So thank you so much for joining me on this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, of course. This is all you, though. Is there any last impression you want to leave with watchers?
Not really. I mean, yes. Thank you so much for joining us. But I guess we've said it all in a way.
Yeah.
Like, it's all very much there, but yeah, don't be scared, guys. Being scared just doesn't let you feel what you want to feel. If you want to feel scared. But if you don't want to, then don't, and try not to. It definitely gets you like back and like holding against a wall, and it's not fun. So yeah, have fun. That's the thing. Have fun.
I feel like that's definitely been like the overarching theme of the talk.
Yeah.
Is have fun and find that joy within working again. So okay, thank you again, Beatrice. For any of you who want to follow her that may or not already be, all the links are below. And like I said, I'll be interviewing Danny next Friday. And this was such a pleasure. So thank you so much. Thank you for inspiring the room colors in my office.
Thank you so much. I love your work, and please keep doing it. I always look forward to your new stuff.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
No, for real. I mean it. I love it. I was so excited when you told me to come talk to you.
Oh, well,
So
thank you so much. Thank you.